Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. I'm Ryan Gilchrist, Managing Editor of Post and Courier Greenville. Excited to have you with us today. Thanks so much for being here. I'll remind you right at the beginning, if you do have additional questions and you didn't submit them ahead of time, please use the Q&A tool down at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to have your questions and we'll answer as many as we can in the time allowed. We're going to talk a little bit today about fees, about the state Supreme Court ruling and about how various counties and particularly Greenville County are dealing with the issue. Before we get into that a little deeper, let me introduce my guest, my co-presenter today, reporter Nathaniel Carey with Post and Courier Greenville. Nate, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you as well. I am a reporter in Greenville, based in Greenville. I've been a reporter in Greenville since 2005. So I have a little bit of history here. I've covered education and environment and been an investigative reporter, covered local governments. And currently I am essentially the county council reporter for the Post and Courier Greenville team, and report a lot on growth and development issues, as well as just the daily, weekly life of county council and decisions that they make.
And so that brings us around to today's topic. So back in June, and of course this goes back a little farther, but back in June, and Nate, I'm going to ask you to approach this from sort of the statewide level at first, and then we'll kind of work our way back toward where things originated. But state Supreme Court ruled that a couple of fees were invalid. They basically said they were taxes masquerading, or fees masquerading as taxes. Can you just give us kind of a broad look? What specifically did the state Supreme Court ruling take issue with?
Sure. This dates back to a case that was filed in 2017 after Greenville County had passed a new telecommunications fee to upgrade its emergency system, and raised its road maintenance fee that it had already charged since 1992. It raised that fee another $15 to $25. And a lawsuit was filed by 3 members of county council at the time and 3 state lawmakers that challenged that fee, saying that it should have been invalid at the time and should have been a tax instead. They lost at the lower court, lost at the appellate court, but the Supreme Court in June ruled 5-0 in favor of them, and as Ryan, you mentioned, essentially said that this was a tax masquerading as a fee, and that the Supreme Court would look very strongly and closely at others that came before them if there's other cases. So specifically, what the issue that the Supreme Court took with it is in 1997, the state General Assembly had added some regulations basically to state code that fees had to meet certain standards in order to succeed and to not be invalid. And the Supreme Court ruled that these fees did not meet those standards. It did not give a specific benefit only to the people who were paying those fees. It was more of a general benefit derived by the whole, even people who were not paying those fees. For instance, somebody in Pickens County driving on Greenville County roads daily is deriving the benefit of somebody from Greenville County paying a road maintenance fee on their vehicles.
So in the decision, I know it was addressing specifically Greenville County, a lawsuit that spun out of Greenville County, but the ruling was really written as kind of a warning shot to governments across the state, wasn't it?
It was a broad way that the justices wrote the ruling, and a concurring opinion written by Justice Kittredge with another judge who signed on as well. And it although the case was specific to Greenville, in general, they said, we've had a number of cases from local governments coming before us, and we have noticed this reoccurring. And they mention on a broad scale that we're going to be paying attention to these fees in general from here on out.
Now that sort of set off a flurry of governments taking a look at assessed fees. Can you give us some examples of the fallout of actions some of the governments took?
Yeah, almost immediately, a number of counties reevaluated their own fees, especially ones that had been passed since 1997, and some invalidated their own fees or rescinded their own fees. Others even have chosen to give refunds for a portion of their fees. Nearby Pickens County in the upstate has rescinded their road maintenance fee, and in its place they raised their millage rates, raised their tax rates to make up the difference to be able to continue to pay for their roads, calling in this case a tax, like the justices sought them to do. Spartanburg County did a similar thing where they've rolled back their road maintenance fee. I know Aiken County has done that as well, and others that are either in process of doing that or have considered it.
Not everybody did roll back the fees. There was just sort of another piece of fallout to this, which is we started to see some lawsuits crop up. And let's hold off on the one in Greenville County for now. But you also wrote a story last week. Florence, Richland, Charleston, their lawsuits had popped up there. What are those suits about? What are they addressing?
Those lawsuits in those counties, they have road maintenance fees or service fees of some sort. And there are residents in those counties who are challenging those fees because their local governments have not either scaled them back, rolled them back, or issued refunds. So residents in each of the in Charleston County, Richland County, Lexington County, I believe in Florence, and there was a lawsuit filed and then was pulled in Horry as well, that each sought to by a resident to get their fees returned and to have those fees declared invalid.
So that kind of brings us back to Greenville County. I mean, this ruling sort of echoed across the state, but it got a little quiet here, but the issue never really went away in Greenville since June, right? It's been part of a regular discussion among council members. We had one reader who submitted a question ahead of time, if there's any consequence for county council ignoring the ruling, but they have not ignored the ruling, right? The fees have been, at least the ones specifically mentioned in the suit, those fees have been stopped.
Right, they haven't ignored the ruling, and they have announced that they are no longer going to collect those fees. So from here on out, they're not going to collect the $15 fee that was passed in 2017 in Greenville County on roads, and the $14.95 fee for telecommunications. They'll no longer collect those fees. They still are charging the initial fee that they've charged since 1992 on road maintenance. So you'll still see that if you're a Greenville County resident or have vehicles registered here, that fee will still show up. It'll be a smaller amount than last year. But Greenville County did not take any action to rescind all of the fees, and did not take any action yet. We can talk a little bit more about this, but to refund any of the fees that have been paid that the Supreme Court has ruled invalid.
Right. So the response so far has been to stop collecting the specific fees cited in the lawsuit, but no force of law change at this point. So we've said the word refund a couple times now, which kind of brings us back around to the current issue at hand. So, when we speak about refunds, just to make sure we're being clear with those who are listening, we're talking about specifically the road and telecom fees have been collected basically since 2017. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's about $30 billion total in Greenville County.
Right. So and keep that figure in mind. Those of you who are listening, $30 million is going to come back in play here in just a minute. It seems like the discussion about refunds has really been going on even within a week or so of the state Supreme Court ruling, among Greenville County Council and among county staff. Can you sort of lead us through that process a little bit? What was some of the initial thought about refunds, and let's handle it from sort of two different angles. And let's call the first one, I hate to say pro and anti, but let's call the first one, in favor of the idea of giving refunds, and what was the thought there? And then we'll come around to the other side here in a minute.
Sure. The initial response from county council, and I spoke to a number of county council members, and many who often find themselves on opposing sides of issues, and almost to a person were in agreement that some sort of a refund should be issued, that they believed that residents should have some sort of a way to recoup money that they paid that has been ruled invalid by the Supreme Court. The details of that program, or how that would be done, is what county council, there was this kind of quiet period where county administrator and staff were trying to decide, how they could do this, what sort of a program they could offer or should offer. And then they eventually brought a program that they thought a solution that they thought would be workable to county council for, to consider specific refunds for fees paid. Part of the issue is going back several years. You may have people who paid those fees who no longer live here, who live out of state or out of county, so they'd be difficult to reach. Others who you've got to figure out a way to either mail checks to people, have a way for people to pick up checks, have a program that you could deduct future, you give them a credit or something like that. There's a lot of different options of things they were trying to do. They eventually were able to figure out a way that they thought was workable, that they could allow people to request refunds through a Greenville County website if they wanted their fees returned.
And where would that money come from?
Essentially, it would come from the county's fund balance. If the county maintains an emergency fund, right now I believe it's about $55 million in it at the turn of the fiscal year, and it would have come from that. Now, if there were $30 million collected in all, there's only going to be a smaller portion of people who would have actually gone through the trouble or wanted to get their fees refunded. So it probably would have been a smaller, much smaller number than the 30 million.
Right. And just so those who are listening can understand, that fund balance that they would draw potentially up to $30 million from, how much money is in that fund?
There's about $55 million in it.
So it would be the bulk of what's in that fund, assuming everybody asked for a refund, correct?
Yeah, if everybody asked for it, it could certainly draw that fund down much lower than the county is required to maintain and likes to maintain.
So there were a couple of votes on this, but let's hold off on that for a second. Give me a sense, and give the folks listening a sense of the other side of that argument, sort of the argument against the idea of giving refunds.
Sure. There's a couple of council members, Lynn Ballard being one of them, who maintained the entire time that though the Supreme Court ruled those fees invalid, he believed that the way that the Greenville County had spent that money was valid. Maybe the fees itself is no longer valid, but that the way that the county chose to use that money, he believed was a valid use of it. It was spent on roads, it was spent on bridges, it was spent on telecommunications, just like they said that it would be. So he didn't believe that it should be returned. There are a number of other council members who said, well, I really haven't heard from constituents on this issue. Most of my constituents are saying our roads in Greenville County are in terrible shape. We need all the money we can get to go towards roads. So there was that argument to be made as well, that the best use of this money was to continue to use it towards roads, even though it was declared invalid.
We had one question come in just now that's kind of relevant to the discussion we're having, which is there an estimate of about how much each person would have received if a refund was offered?
There's not a specific estimate, because people may have paid completely different amounts depending on how many vehicles you had registered in Greenville County, how many years you paid that fee. If you moved here in 2018, 2020, you would have paid different amounts. So there's not an estimate per person, sort of an estimate. But if you say, all right, I paid 2 vehicles and the telecommunications fee on my property taxes since 2017, you can figure out how much you would have paid and would receive back.
Right. Okay. So there were 2 votes on this, right? So we had the ruling in June. There was discussion throughout August and September, really, and county staff doing some work on this and some other things. But it came to a vote in October, 2 different times. Can you tell us a little bit about the first vote and then the second vote, and then we'll kind of get to some other things involved in that vote after that?
Sure. There had been some attention and some pressure put on county council to do something, to offer a refund. Constituents, certain segment of constituents at least wanted a refund, and the county staff I mentioned earlier had a program. They developed a way to make those refunds available. So they in a closed meeting informed county council of what they believed they could do for a program. They came out of that executive session in a committee of the whole meeting, which oftentimes precedes a county council meeting, but the entire county council can participate in that type of a meeting. And they held a vote, and it was a 6-4 vote in favor of issuing refunds and starting this program, making it available. And then an hour later, in the county council meeting, the item was on the agenda. It came up for a vote. There was very little discussion, and a voice vote was taken, which means not each county council member had to raise their hand or say aye or nay when their name was called. And it was just a general voice vote of affirmation, and it failed. There was only a couple of yes votes and a number of nay votes, but nobody had to put themselves on the record of what their actual vote was. So in that hour between approving this program and the county council meeting itself, the mindsets changed among county council. So
Nate, let me interrupt you there for just a second before we go on to the second vote. Is a voice vote unusual? I mean, when do you typically see those? Procedurally, why would you use a voice vote?
It's not unusual. There's a number of them usually in each meeting, but it's usually on things that are a fairly clear topic, or the chairman believes he's got like an easy majority of the votes. In this instance, the chairman afterwards, told me, well, we had just passed it at committee of the whole, so I assumed we'd pass it at county council by the same number, and obviously he'd misjudged what had happened. Any county council member before the vote takes place can ask for a roll call vote as part of their county rules, but that wasn't done. And afterwards, I was left to go to different county council members and ask them, well, I think I heard you say this, and I think I heard you say this. Is that correct? Several said they abstained from voting, and others, put themselves on the record. Specifically, 3 council members who had initially joined this lawsuit in 2017, each said that they had voted in favor of the refunds. But
it's worth noting here that the current council chairman, Willis Meadows, was one of those 3 councilmen who challenged the fees legally.
Correct. Willis Meadows, Mike Barnes, and Joe Dill each had challenged those fees back in 2017.
Right. So then, it gets voted down by the voice vote, but it comes back up again a few weeks later. Why the second vote, and what happened in that second vote?
Yeah, it was recalled 2 weeks later, and several council members had talked amongst themselves about needing to make some sort of a refund available. it seemed that the Supreme Court was asking them to do that, not in so many words, but by saying these are invalid fees, they felt like they should make something available. Other counties around the upstate had already done this, and they wanted to make that decision again, try again to start this program. There was also some concern and foresight by county council members that if they didn't make some sort of a refund available, that they were going to face another lawsuit by residents seeking to recoup their fees. One council member, Steve Shaw, sent an email to county council members and essentially said, quote, "We're going to get our asses handed to us by the Supreme Court if we don't issue a refund." And so he made it very clear of what he thought was going to happen if they did not vote in favor of issuing refunds that night. So it came back before county council again. Another very brief discussion, and it was rejected again, this time by a 7-5 vote.
Right. And we've had a couple of questions from readers, and we just got another one in related to how the county is going to pay for roads going forward. But everybody hold off on that one for a second. We're going to get to it. I want to talk about two other things quickly. You used the word foresight, in relation to the second vote. I think both you and I had some feeling that there was another shoe about to drop on that. And sure enough, it did. The next day, a lawsuit is filed, essentially seeking refunds. Tell us about that lawsuit and what it's seeking.
Sure. So to start with the Charleston County lawsuit, Richland, I believe Lexington, Florence or others that were filed. Those were filed seeking essentially the refund of fees paid to taxpayers plus interest. In Greenville County, a man in Courier filed a class action lawsuit that sought not just a refund of all fees paid, about that $30 million, but that plus 10 times that $30 million. So another $300 million for a total of $330 million that they're seeking from Greenville County in a class action lawsuit filed, I believe, October 20th, just a little over a week ago.
Now, I know a lot of times the numbers we see attached to lawsuits, they're designed to get attention or capricious or kind of random. This one actually has a formula behind it, correct?
Right. It's based on state law that if a local government official charges an illegal tax or illegal fee, you can recoup that fee and then an extra 10 times in addition to that. And so it's based on that formula that's written in state code.
So what happens next with the lawsuit, with the potential for refunds, with the fees? What's the sort of next step for the county?
The county council could always take this matter up again. It would have to be somebody who was on the presiding side of the last vote. So somebody who was on that 7 majority who would choose to take it up again for another vote. If it goes to court, then it's going to be up to a judge to decide whether this class action, this class can be certified as a class action lawsuit. And then if it is certified as a class action lawsuit, it would head towards a trial at that stage. Often you see these things settled at some point along the way, but you never know with this case.
An interesting stat in your most recent story on this, the $330 million is actually larger than the county's entire budget. Is that correct?
That's right. It's larger than its annual budget. I believe its annual budget was somewhere around $319 million this year.
So talking about the budget and talking about roads, like I said, we have a couple questions related to how does the county pay for roads in the future if this fee is going away. They actually did sort of recently make an adjustment to road maintenance costs and spending. Can you tell us a little about that? Both the reduction in spending and also what the county might do in the future to pay for road maintenance.
After the ruling came out in late June, it actually came out the day after Greenville County Council had finalized its budget for the coming year. The county was planning to spend $12 million. Essentially, its allotment of roads maintenance fees on its roads program this coming year. And in the aftermath of that ruling, County Council Chairman Meadows told me, don't expect to see any changes to services for Greenville County residents. We think we've got this, we can cover it. But it turns out that the roads list that they had initially approved of all of the roads that they'd planned to repave or resurface or fix this year, which is about 42.5 miles. It came back before County Council late September, early October, and it was trimmed down. And I picked up on the difference in the number of roads that they're planning to pave, and they'd actually cut their road paving list this year by 30%. And as a result of no longer having access to the road maintenance fees.
Now, if I'm remembering those numbers right, I believe that trimmed it down to about 30 miles of paving.
Yeah, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 miles.
And the county has how many miles of roads that it typically
makes? Just over 1,700 miles of roads.
So 30 and 1,700, those are kind of important numbers to remember there. I know this is a little bit before your time covering council. We did have this question come in, and I think you can probably at least shed a little bit of light on it. The history of the fees back in 2017, there was pretty heated discussion over the fees when they were put in place initially, correct?
There was. It was a split council then. It's a split council now. It's been a split council for a long time. But at the time, former chairman Butch Kervin, who's still on county council, wanted to raise these fees. He had a majority who voted with him, and they passed these fees. I believe it was an 8-4 vote. Maybe it was a 7-5 vote at the time, and that was the initial genesis of this lawsuit from now Chairman Meadows, Joe Dill, Mike Barnes, who are all on council at the time. The council rules stated that they needed a supermajority to pass a tax or a fee increase. Eventually, the council rescinded that vote, repealed that ordinance, changed its rules so it no longer needed a supermajority to pass a tax or a fee increase, and then voted on it again and passed those fees. And that's how they handled it or got those fees passed in the first place.
Okay, well, we're about out of time. Obviously, this is a topic that Nate and the Post and Courier are going to continue to cover as it works its way through either the county council chambers or the courtroom. Either way, we'll be on it, and if it warrants another update, we'll come back and talk about it again. That's all for now. Thank you, Nate, for your time. Thanks to those who are watching. We'll post the recording of this on our website as soon as this is over or quickly after it's over. So if you missed it, want to watch it again or want to share it with someone, be sure and check out postandcourier.com/beyond-the-headlines. You can find the links there. It's also posted up on YouTube. You can support our work by signing up for any of our free newsletters. I cannot encourage you enough to do that. I put most of them together, so your attention is appreciated there. Postandcourier.com/Greenville patreon.com/newsletter-sign up. Please do check those out. Paid subscribers make our brand of journalism possible and help us keep our communities informed. We appreciate your support. You can subscribe now to the Post and Courier at postandcourier.com/Greenville/subscribe. For new subscribers, we're currently offering 4 months for $4. It's the best deal you're going to get. I absolutely promise you that. You can also support our investigative efforts. Go to postandcourier.com. Look on the main page. There's a spot there to make a donation. If you've seen the Uncovered series or if you've seen anything coming out of our education lab, that's where that money comes from. So do please help support those efforts. On behalf of Nate, the entire Post and Courier team, thanks for your time. We'll see you next time. Thank you.